Hi everyone, Bandanner here, and welcome to this week's WARNO Devblog. So today it is definitely a filler episode while we are waiting for another big update slash patch to fix all the things that have gone wrong at the minute, like SMGs and autocannons, but I'm sure it is on the way. This week we're getting a bit of information on new models and new FX improvements. So first up, they obviously say welcome and everything else, and that they've recently reworked the T64, T72 and T80 models, and now they're moving on to some of the NATO units. So first up is the M60A3. One of the models we worked on over the summer was the American M60A3 TTS. The original M60 was an older generation main battle tank during the 1960s and 1970s. It was a mainstay of the American and Allied forces, but by the late Cold War, the tank had been surpassed by the more modern M1 Abrams. However, the M60 received continuous upgrades and a host of different variants during its service life. With the M60A3 introduced in 1978, Top Brass saw this particular version as a stopgap measure until the more advanced Abrams could be fielded in sufficient numbers. The M60 kept being in service in the US Army and Cold War allies, including other NATO countries, for the duration of the Cold War and beyond. Obviously, you can see the nice new model in the background now. The M60A3 was one of the most modern variants fielded in the 1980s. And the TTS designation meaning the tank thermal sight. This sighting system is also one of the more notable visual upgrades we implemented in our in-game model. The AN/VSG-2 tank thermal sight, with its new eyelid sight cover coupled with a prominent weather sensor in the rear, exemplifies the significant updates linked to the M60A3 TTS, and here's that comparison shot between the new and the old. Now, the AN/VSS3 spotlight was removed, and its power outlet on the turret roof was welded down. In its place, a spare bogey wheel is carried in case of mines. The tank bogies themselves were upgraded, being lighter, smoother, and without structural ribs. Furthermore, the gun barrel is covered in thermal wrap. The updated track stem from the Rise program enabled better performance on asphalt, and the new visuals of the M60A3 TTS will also be paired with a balance pass favouring the medium tank meta in WARNO. So yes, we are going to get more rebalancing of the tanks. Next up is the Bradley series update. While working on detailing the Soviet tank models, we were already eyeing the Bradley series of infantry fighting vehicles as one of our next targets. We found that these well-known units look less than stellar compared to some of our models. We also realized that the main variant in-game, the M2A2, only represented under 10% of the total Bradley fleet deployed in Europe. Its predecessor, the M2, aka the M2A0 and M2A1, were much more widespread. To better reflect this reality on the ground, we significantly boost the Bradley series. We currently only feature the M2A2 IFV and M3A1 CFV cavalry fighting vehicles. After the rework, WARNO will have the M2 Bradley, with the same stats as our current M2A2, but only capable of firing the ITO. The M2A1 Bradley, which will have the same stats and weapon loadout as our current M2A2. The M2A2 Bradley, which will have been heavily up-armoured compared to the current stats. The M3 Bradley, which will feature the same stats as the current M3A2 but only fire the ITO, the M3A1 Bradley, which will remain unchanged in stats and weapons, and the M3A2 Bradley, which will be heavily up-armoured variant compared to the M3A1. So as much as this is a filler episode of the Devblog, we've got a little bit of inside information there. We are getting new Bradley variants. The M2A1 Bradley will replace the current M2A2 version. This is just a nomenclature change, as the unit will feature precisely the same stats. Meanwhile, we'll also reintroduce new remodeled and up-armoured M2A2 to be featured in limited quantities within our NATO US 3rd Armoured Division. So yeah, some new changes coming to some of the divisions there. So next up, we have some more FX improvements. So there are going to be visual models and also some new special effects and things as well. So removal of the older 2D textures as requested and promised, and updating volumetric FX. This means we will replace single animated particle with several smaller ones for better rendering. We'll also rework all impact and crater special effects alongside this. New fire and napalm effects, new unit death effects, reworked planes and helicopter crash effects, reworked tracer bullets and machine guns and autocannons, additional variety with cluster weapon impacts, and optimization for some bomb effects. Please note that some of the above FX improvements have already entered the game, and we are keen to know if you've noticed them. Adding the other special effects is of course an ongoing task. And then finally we have the new M240B model. Another not entirely cosmetic change is the introduction of the American M240B squad machine gun. Although already in service with the USMC, it was in the process of replacing the M60 Pig in US Army squads as well in the late 80s. How fast, to which extent, it's hard to tell. At first we decided to retain the good old M60 for American squads, but we've given it a second thought, and that's why the new M240B model, a variant of the Belgian FN MAG, will replace the M60 for all American squads except, and this is Army not Airborne, Engineers and MPs. The M240B gets the same stats as the current M60 or the British L7A2, itself a variant of the FN MAG, so it's mostly a cosmetic change. Meanwhile, the old M60, still used in infantry squads, not the tripod-mounted HMGs, will get a small rate of fire nerf, although its performance was roughly the same as the M240B. The M60's main issue was its unreliability, being much more prone to malfunction and in need of rearming manually. And that's everything for this week. Pretty short and sweet, but we got some nice new pictures and images of those new models, and the fact that we are getting different variations of the Bradley, for example, and obviously a tank rework that's going to help those medium tanks perform a bit better in the long run. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please do like, share, and subscribe as always, and I'll see you all soon for some more WARNO.